kind of appropriate because these guys were trying to catch up to George Rogers Clark and his larger force, and they never did. And so they were chasing George Rogers Clark around this area in much the same way I've been chasing you around this area, trying to find you. But so Laughery's man, Colonel Archibald Laughery, was the leader, and he raised a little over 100 militia in Westmoreland County, Pennsylvania. George Rogers Clark had a force. He was promoted to brigadier general in 1781. He was given command of all the Virginia militia in the western territories. And so he had originally about 600 men. And so Laughery's force of Pennsylvania militia were trying to join George Rogers Clark. And then they were going to launch an attack on Detroit, which was the British stronghold. And if they could take Detroit, then the British, who were instigating the Indians and causing all the Indian problems, would pretty much be taken care of. But Laughery, he was supposed to meet, Westmoreland County's just east of Pittsburgh, so that's where he formed his militia. And they went through Fort Pitt, and they went down to Wheeling, West Virginia, and that's where they were supposed to meet Clark. Well, Clark had been waiting for him for 5 days, and they hadn't showed up. So Clark eventually left and came down the river from Wheeling, and about maybe 8, 10, 12 hours after he left, finally Laughery shows up, and he's already gone. But there's nothing there. No boats, no supplies or anything. So Laughery, several days before he headed down the river, they had to build boats. By boats, we're talking canoes and small rafts and stuff, because it was August, the Ohio River pretty shallow, especially in the upper parts there. That would be the only kind of boat you could get down the river in. But these guys weren't rivermen. They were probably farmers, and they didn't really know what they were doing. And so they had trouble making their way down the river. They sent a party out with a letter to try to catch up with Clark, tell him we need more supplies. But these guys got captured by the Indians, and the Indians got a hold of the letter, so they knew Laughery was coming. They knew how many men he had, and so they're basically following him all the way down the river. And when they got about 10 or 11 miles from here, near present-day Aurora, Illinois, or Indiana, the Indians ambushed. The Indians had about an equal number of men, about 100, but they were totally unprepared for the attack. They were like gathering food, cutting grass for the horses. They had some horses they were bringing down the river on a raft. I don't know how good idea that was. But anyway, they were attacked, and they were massacred by largely a force of Indians, led by an Indian named Joseph Grant, who was a Mohawk. He was kind of a minor war chief, but he gained a lot of standing with the British because he spoke good English, and the British liked dealing with him. And so what happened, 37 of Laughery's men were killed there, including Laughery himself. And it said that Laughery was killed after the battle. They had surrendered. He was sitting on a log, and an Indian came up, took a tomahawk like this, and put it in his head. And all the men who were killed there, a lot of them were killed after they surrendered. And Joseph Grant, the Indian leader, put a stop to that, because there was a bounty on all these men's heads if they could turn them in alive. But the 37 were scouted, and they were left lying there 10 miles up the river. So about 67 were taken prisoner, the total remainder. The Indians suffered 0 injuries, 0 casualties in this battle. And they were brought to near here, up the road where we were, which was near the mouth, a little closer to the mouth of the Miami River at the time, I think. and they were held there from, this battle took place on August 24th, 1781. They were held there from August 26th to about the 15th of September in this internment POW camp. So I'm kind of representing one of the prisoners that was there that had been ambushed and survived, one of the survivors. And then eventually they were brought on to Detroit and then up to Montreal, where they were put in prison. Few escaped along the way as they're being moved from one place to another. Some things say that not more than 20 of the 100, a little more than 100 of Laughery's original expedition ever made it back home. Some say it may have been close to half. But if ever there was an ill-fated military expedition, it was Laughery's expedition. Nothing went right for these guys the whole way. And that's just briefly their story.